I will be very gentle, the giant mail order husband assured the Black Widow. The letters started kind. They ended with accusations. Miriam Averill sat in the parlor of her late husband's house, reading condolences that twisted into suspicions. 3 husbands, 3 deaths. The math was simple for the people of Tribulation Creek. She folded the last letter and placed it with the others. Outside, tumbleweeds danced past her window like ghosts fleeing judgment. The general store buzzed with whispers when she entered. Eleanor Burke stood at the counter, her voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. 3 healthy men don't just drop dead around the same woman. Nature doesn't work that way. The other customers shifted away from Miriam. Their eyes found the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but her face. She gathered her supplies in silence, paid her coins, and left with her dignity intact but her heart heavy. Sheriff Abel Corey visited that afternoon. His boots scraped against her porch as he removed his hat with false politeness. "Miriam, folks are talking. Might be you'd find more peace elsewhere." His badge caught the sunlight. His smile never reached his eyes. "I've done nothing wrong, Sheriff." "Course not. But sometimes appearances matter more than truth. One more incident and those territorial authorities might take interest. You understand my meaning." She understood perfectly. Back east, she had learned medicine from her grandmother's gentle hands. Her grandfather, freed from bondage, had become a respected healer in their community. They taught her that plants could cure what doctors could not touch. She came west seeking opportunity and found love instead. Thomas had courted her with poetry. Samuel brought her wildflowers. Marcus built her this house with his own hands. Each man loved her truly. Each man died of illness despite her desperate attempts to save them. Her knowledge had not been enough. Now that knowledge branded her a killer. That evening, Miriam sat at her writing desk. The advertisement needed careful words. She wrote of seeking a husband gentle of spirit, strong of character, unburdened by local prejudices. Miles away in a mining town, Solomon Furlow read those words by lamplight. The blacksmith's massive frame cast shadows across the newspaper. Recent tragedy haunted him. The mine collapse had taken 12 good men. He alone survived. He alone carried their memory. His friends warned against answering. The Black Widow's reputation traveled far, but something in her words called to his own isolation. 2 souls blamed for deaths they could not prevent. Perhaps they understood each other's burden. Solomon reached for his pen. In Tribulation Creek, Miriam sealed her letter to the newspaper. Neither knew their lives would soon intertwine like smoke rising from separate fires, destined to become one flame against the darkness of prejudice and false accusation. The future held promise and peril in equal measure. The stagecoach lurched to a stop outside the Tribulation Creek depot. Dust swirled around Solomon Furlow as he emerged, his frame blocking the afternoon sun. Conversations died on the boardwalk. Children ducked behind their mothers' skirts. He stood 7 feet tall with shoulders broad enough to carry the world's troubles. His calloused hands spoke of honest work. His eyes held the weight of recent tragedy. The depot clerk stammered directions to the boarding house. Solomon nodded his thanks and gathered his simple belongings. Every step down Main Street drew stares and whispers. Sheriff Corey appeared within minutes, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "You the fellow answering that advertisement?" "I am. Might want to reconsider. Woman's got a reputation." Solomon's gaze never wavered. "Most reputations are built on gossip, not truth." The sheriff's jaw tightened. Another outsider challenging his authority. Another complication in his carefully laid plans. Eleanor Burke assembled her welcoming committee by sunset. 6 prominent ladies gathered in her parlor, their faces set with righteous purpose. "We have a Christian duty to save this poor man from making a terrible mistake." They descended on the boarding house like missionaries approaching a heathen temple. Eleanor knocked with authority she'd borrowed from years of social prominence. Solomon opened the door, his presence filling the frame completely. "Sir, we represent the moral interests of this community. That woman you've come to meet has buried 3 husbands under suspicious circumstances. Suspicious to whom? To anyone with eyes to see. No woman should outlive 3 healthy men. Perhaps she's simply stronger than most. Aliner's companions shifted nervously. His quiet confidence unnerved them. You don't understand the danger you're courting. I understand fear when I see it. The question is why you're so afraid of one widow. They left without converting him to their cause. The next morning, Solomon walked to Miriam's house. The structure stood solid and welcoming despite its isolation. Gardens bloomed with careful attention. No evil dwelt in soil that grew such beauty. Miriam answered his knock with grace that surprised him. Her dress was simple but elegant. Her posture spoke of education and breeding. Her eyes held intelligence sharper than any blade. "Mr. Furlow, I presume." "Ma'am, your letter spoke to something in my heart." They sat on her porch, sharing coffee and careful conversation. She described her loneliness with dignity. He spoke of his own struggles with survivor's guilt. Neither mentioned the town's whispers directly, but both understood the weight of unfair judgment. "Why did you answer my advertisement? Surely you heard the stories." "Stories are wind. Character is stone. I see your character in everything around us." Her garden reflected knowledge and patience. Her home showed refinement and care. Her manner revealed breeding and intelligence. These were not the qualities of a killer. Days passed in careful courtship. Solomon took work at the local smithy, his skill impressing even skeptical customers. Miriam continued her quiet existence, tending her plants and maintaining her dignity. The town watched their developing relationship with growing unease. Some whispered about the giant's chances of survival. Others wondered what dark power the widow possessed to ensnare such a formidable man. Sheriff Corey's patience wore thin. His correspondence with territorial authorities demanded action. His secret benefactor pressed for Miriam's removal. Time was running short for subtle methods. The town meeting convened on a Thursday evening. Corey had orchestrated the gathering with careful precision. Concerned citizens packed the small hall, their voices rising in manufactured outrage. "We can't ignore the pattern any longer. 3 dead husbands can't be coincidence." Miriam sat in the front row, her spine straight as Judgment Day. Solomon occupied the chair beside her, his presence both protective and provocative. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Sheriff?" "I'm not accusing anyone of anything, just stating facts that concern this community's safety." Alina Burke rose from her seat, her voice carrying across the room. "Facts are that healthy men keep dying around you. Facts are that decent folks are afraid." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Miriam felt the weight of their collective suspicion pressing down like a physical force. Solomon stood slowly, his movement commanding attention. The room fell silent as his shadow stretched across the assembled crowd. "I've known this woman for 2 weeks. In that time, I've seen more kindness and intelligence than this entire room has shown in generations." His voice carried the quiet authority of absolute conviction. "You judge her without evidence. You condemn her without trial. You let fear make cowards of you all." Someone shouted from the back. "Easy words from a man who hasn't married her yet. Easier words from people who have never faced real tragedy." The crowd grew restless. Solomon's imposing presence, meant to defend Miriam, only reinforced their fears. His size suggested violence even as his manner spoke of gentleness. Sheriff Corey seized the moment. "Nobody's questioning your intentions, stranger, but this community has legitimate concerns about public safety." The meeting dissolved into heated arguments. Miriam realized that force and flight would never clear her name. Only truth could set her free from their collective judgment. But truth required proof, and proof demanded the right circumstances. Those circumstances were coming sooner than anyone expected. The fever came without warning. Alina Burke found her son Timothy burning with heat that morning, his small body shaking with chills that no blanket could warm. Dr. Henderson arrived within the hour, his weathered face growing grave as he examined the boy. High fever. Could be any number of things. Alina gripped her son's hand while the doctor prepared his remedies, Timothy's breathing grew shallow. His skin took on a waxy pallor that spoke of serious illness. By afternoon, the boy was worse. Dr. Henderson tried everything in his medical bag: cold compresses, bitter tonics, prayers whispered over labored breathing. Nothing touched the fever's grip. "I've done all I can, Eleanor. We have to wait and hope." But hope felt fragile when her son's temperature climbed higher with each passing hour. Word spread through Tribulation Creek like wildfire. Eleanor Burke's boy was dying. The same Eleanor who had led the campaign against Miriam Averill. The same Eleanor whose sharp tongue had cut deepest at the town meeting. Some whispered about divine justice. Others saw coincidence. All watched to see what would happen next. Sheriff Corey saw opportunity in the child's crisis. Public sentiment was already inflamed. Fear made people irrational. One more push would give him everything he needed. He gathered his deputies at sunset, their faces grim with manufactured determination. "Can't risk waiting any longer. That woman's presence threatens this entire community." The arrest party marched through town as Timothy Burke fought for his life 3 blocks away. Citizens emerged from their homes to watch justice finally served. Solomon stood on Miriam's porch, his massive frame blocking the front door. He had sensed trouble coming like animals sense storms. "Step aside, stranger. Got legal business with the lady." "What charges?" "Suspicion of murder, endangering public safety, practicing medicine without license." Corey's hand rested on his gun butt, hoping the giant would resist. Violence would justify anything that followed. Solomon didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply existed in that doorway like a mountain that had grown roots. "I said step aside." "I heard you." The standoff stretched into uncomfortable silence. Deputies shifted nervously behind their sheriff. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for confrontation. Solomon's voice carried across the evening air with quiet authority. "I was 17 when the mine collapsed back in Copper Falls. Worked alongside my brother Marcus and 10 other good men." His words commanded attention despite the tension. "Explosion trapped us deep underground. Support beams started falling like dominoes. Only one passage out and it was closing fast." The crowd listened despite themselves. Even Corey held his aggression in check. "I was biggest and strongest, could move the fastest through tight spaces. So I went first to clear the way for others." Solomon's eyes found faces in the gathering dusk. "Beam came down just as I reached safety, sealed that passage tight as a tomb. 12 good men died because I couldn't save them. Because I wasn't strong enough, because I wasn't fast enough." His confession hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. "Whole town blamed me after, said I should have stayed behind, should have died with them, should have found another way." Eleanor Burke appeared at the edge of the crowd, her face streaked with tears. Timothy was worse. Dr. Henderson had given up hope. "But here's what I learned in that mine," Solomon continued. "Sometimes tragedy strikes despite your best efforts. Sometimes good people die no matter how much you love them. Sometimes the living get blamed for deaths they couldn't prevent." His gaze settled on Sheriff Corey. "This woman lost 3 husbands to illness. I lost 12 brothers to circumstance. Neither of us chose our grief. Neither of us deserves your judgment." The crowd stirred uneasily. Solomon's parallel cast Miriam's situation in different light. Eleanor pushed through the assembled people, desperation overcoming pride. "My son is dying." The words silenced every conversation. Mothers instinctively moved closer to their own children. "Dr. Henderson says there's nothing more he can do. Timothy's fever won't break." She looked directly at Miriam through the doorway. "I know what I said about you. I know how I've treated you, but you're the only person in this town who might save him." The request hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Sheriff Corey saw his moment slipping away. "She's under arrest, Eleanor. Can't let her tend anyone in her condition." "What condition? Being accused of crimes you can't prove." Eleanor's voice cracked with maternal desperation. "She's my last hope. My only hope." Miriam stepped forward, her decision already made. "I'll come. You're not going anywhere except jail." Solomon moved slightly, his bulk shifting to block the sheriff's advance. "She's going to help that boy. You can arrest her after if you still have the stomach for it." The crowd faced an impossible choice. Allow the suspected killer near another victim, or watch an innocent child die while help stood within reach. Alina Burke had spent weeks poisoning the town against Miriam Averill. Now she stood before that same woman, begging for mercy she didn't deserve. "Please." Miriam gathered her medical supplies while Solomon held the line against official interference. The night would bring either vindication or final condemnation. Timothy Burke's life hung in the balance, and with it, the fate of everyone involved. Miriam knelt beside Timothy's bed, her hands steady despite the weight of watching eyes. The boy's fever had climbed to dangerous heights. His breathing came in shallow gasps that spoke of a body fighting for survival. She opened her medical bag with practiced precision. Glass vials caught lamplight like captured stars. Dried herbs filled sachets with earthy promise. Everything organized with the care of someone who understood that lives hung in the balance of preparation. Dr. Henderson watched from the corner, his skepticism barely concealed. "What exactly do you plan to do that I haven't tried?" Miriam examined Timothy's symptoms with gentle thoroughness. His pulse, his breathing, the color of his skin, the heat radiating from his small frame. Willow bark for the fever, elderflower to help him sweat it out, chamomile to ease his breathing. She moved with quiet confidence, measuring doses with scales that had belonged to her grandfather, each ingredient chosen for specific purpose, each combination tested by generations of healers. Alina hovered nearby, torn between hope and terror. Allowing the suspected killer near her dying son defied every instinct. But conventional medicine had failed. This was Timothy's last chance. Solomon stood guard by the door, keeping Sheriff Corey and his deputies at bay. The lawman paced like a caged wolf, furious at seeing his prey escape justice. Miriam prepared the first remedy, her movements flowing like water. She had learned these techniques from her grandmother's patient instruction, but the knowledge went deeper, much deeper. Her grandfather had been born into bondage on a Carolina plantation, but freedom had revealed his gift for healing. Plants spoke to him in languages older than written words. He became the medicine man for their community, respected by people of all colors who needed his knowledge. He taught her that healing was sacred work, that every person deserved dignity in their suffering, that medicine knew no boundaries of race or class or circumstance. Her grandmother added the precise measurements, the careful combinations, the patience required to coax healing from nature's bounty. Together, they had raised a healer who could read illness like scholars read books. Miriam lifted Timothy's head and coaxed the first dose between his cracked lips. The boy swallowed reflexively, his body recognizing help even as his mind wandered in fever dreams. Now we wait. Hours crawled past like wounded animals. Timothy's condition held steady but showed no improvement. Alina maintained her vigil, watching her son fight battles she couldn't see. Miriam prepared compresses soaked in cooling herbs. She checked his pulse regularly, monitoring the rhythm of his struggling heart. She adjusted his position to ease his breathing. Solomon brought fresh water from the well. He stoked the fire to keep the room warm without overheating the patient. He offered quiet support to everyone bearing witness to the night's drama. Dr. Henderson found himself impressed despite his reservations. Miriam's technique showed formal training beyond folk remedies. Her understanding of symptoms revealed genuine medical knowledge. "Where did you learn these methods?" "My grandfather studied under army surgeons during the war. My grandmother apprenticed with midwives and herbalists. They taught me that healing requires both science and intuition." She opened her medical journal, its pages filled with careful observations, detailed notes about symptoms and treatments, records of successes and failures spanning years of practice. "These are the cases I've treated, including my 3 husbands." Dr. Henderson read over her shoulder, his expression changing with each page. The entries revealed someone dedicated to preserving life, not taking it. someone who documented every attempt to heal, every failure to save those she loved. The entry about Thomas showed her desperate fight against consumption, detailed records of treatments that slowed but couldn't stop the disease's progression. Samuel's case documented her battle with typhoid. Week by week, she had tried everything in her knowledge to break the fever that finally claimed him. Marcus had suffered from heart failure. Her notes showed careful attention to his diet, his activities, his declining strength. She had prolonged his life by months, but couldn't repair the damage time had inflicted. These aren't the records of a killer. Elena looked up from her son's bedside. What do you mean? Dr. Henderson held up the journal. This woman fought harder to save her husbands than most doctors fight to save strangers. Look at these treatment plans, the attention to detail, the genuine attempts to heal. Near midnight, Timothy's fever broke. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his temperature dropped for the first time in 2 days. His breathing deepened into more natural rhythms. Elena wept with relief as her son's eyes fluttered open, clear and focused for the first time since morning. "Mama!" His voice was weak but steady. The crisis had passed. Miriam packed her supplies with quiet satisfaction. Another life preserved. Another small victory against death's persistent advance. The crowd that had gathered outside witnessed Timothy's recovery through the window. Word spread quickly through Tribulation Creek. The Black Widow had saved Elena Burke's son using methods that conventional medicine couldn't match. Sheriff Corey watched his case crumble like a house built on sand. Public opinion was shifting. The woman he needed to arrest had just performed a miracle that half the town had witnessed. Elena took Miriam's hands in hers, shame and gratitude warring in her expression. "I owe you my son's life. After everything I said about you, you owe me nothing. Healing is what I do." But the debt was there nonetheless. Elena Burke had led the campaign to destroy Miriam's reputation. Now she would lead the campaign to restore it. Justice sometimes arrived wearing unexpected clothes. Elena Burke couldn't sleep. Timothy rested peacefully for the first time in days, his fever broken and breathing steady. But questions burned in her mind like coals that wouldn't die. How could a killer possess such healing knowledge? Why would someone capable of murder fight so desperately to save a child? The contradiction ate at her conscience like acid. She rose before dawn and walked to Miriam's house, shame weighing her steps like iron shackles. Solomon answered her knock, his presence filling the doorway with quiet strength. "She's in the garden." Miriam knelt among her herbs, hands deep in rich soil. Morning light caught the careful organization of her plants, medicinal varieties arranged by purpose and potency. A living pharmacy tended with scientific precision. "I need to understand something." Elena's voice carried none of its usual authority. The near loss of her son had stripped away layers of false confidence. "Your journals show someone who fought to save her husbands, not someone who wanted them dead." Miriam continued her work, hands steady among the healing plants. "People believe what they choose to believe." "Then tell me what really happened. Help me understand." The story came slowly, like water from a deep well. Miriam's first husband Thomas had courted her in a river town called Millfield. Happy marriage cut short by consumption that her knowledge couldn't cure. Samuel had owned a trading post in Riverside. Typhoid swept through that settlement like wildfire. She had treated dozens of victims, saving most, losing some. Samuel among the casualties despite her desperate efforts. Marcus had been a carpenter in Cedar Falls, strong as an oak tree until his heart began failing. She prolonged his life through careful treatment, but couldn't repair organs worn beyond healing. Elena listened with growing understanding. 3 different towns, 3 different illnesses, 3 men who had died despite having the best medical care their settlements could provide. "Why did you keep moving?" "Same reason you'd want me gone from here. People don't trust what they don't understand. Easier to blame someone than accept that death sometimes wins despite our best efforts." Elena spent the morning reading through Miriam's complete medical records. The journals painted a picture of someone dedicated to preserving life. Treatment plans showed creativity and determination. Patient notes revealed genuine care for human suffering. Most telling were the entries about failures, detailed analyses of what hadn't worked, self-criticism that bordered on torture, the writings of someone who took every death personally. That afternoon Alina made calls throughout Tribulation Creek. Her social position opened doors that remained closed to others. Her reputation carried weight in conversations that shaped public opinion. She started with Dr. Henderson, showing him selected journal entries that demonstrated Miriam's medical expertise. The old physician studied the treatment plans with growing respect. These methods are sophisticated, more advanced than what I learned in medical school. Alina moved through the town's leading families, presenting evidence instead of gossip, actual medical records instead of fearful speculation. The transformation began slowly but gathered momentum like a river breaking through winter ice. Meanwhile, Solomon worked his own investigation. His blacksmith job brought contact with travelers and merchants who carried news between settlements. He asked careful questions about the towns where Miriam's husbands had died. The truth emerged piece by piece like a puzzle assembling itself. Millfield had suffered a tuberculosis outbreak the year Thomas died. Riverside had battled typhoid that claimed nearly 50 people. Cedar Falls had endured a harsh winter that took many elderly residents through heart failure and lung disease. Miriam hadn't caused these tragedies. She had fought against them. The most damaging revelation came from an unexpected source. Alina's own investigation into property records revealed disturbing patterns. Each time Miriam left a settlement, wealthy investors had quickly purchased her deceased husband's land at below-market prices. The same pattern was emerging in Tribulation Creek. Marcus's property was valuable. Railroad surveys suggested future development potential. Someone stood to profit handsomely if Miriam could be forced to sell cheaply or abandon her inheritance entirely. Alina confronted Sheriff Corey with her discoveries. His nervous reaction confirmed her suspicions. His sudden wealth made sense in light of recent land speculation. His eagerness to arrest Miriam served purposes beyond law enforcement. "You're taking bribes to drive her away." Corey's hand moved toward his gun, then stopped. Too many witnesses, too much attention already focused on his actions. "You don't understand the complexities of maintaining order." "I understand corruption when it's spelled out in land records and bank deposits." Alina had done her homework with the thoroughness of someone seeking redemption. Financial documents told clear stories about money changing hands. Property transfers revealed coordinated efforts to acquire valuable land through intimidation. The sheriff's backers included prominent businessmen from the territorial capital, men with railroad connections and development plans, men who needed clear titles to pursue their profitable schemes. Alina took her evidence to the territorial authorities. The same officials who had pressured Corey to arrest Miriam now faced proof of his corruption. Justice moved with surprising speed when political careers were threatened. Corey's removal from office came with criminal charges. His co-conspirators faced investigation that would unravel years of fraudulent land deals. The web of corruption stretched far beyond one small town's prejudices. Miriam learned of her vindication while tending Timothy Burke. The boy had recovered completely, his strength returning with each passing day. Alina delivered the news with tears of gratitude and shame. "The territorial marshal wants to apologize personally. Your name will be cleared in every settlement where questions were raised." Justice had arrived wearing the clothes of a reformed gossip and a gentle giant who refused to step aside when truth needed defending. Spring arrived in Tribulation Creek with promise of new beginnings. Miriam's reputation had transformed from whispered curse to respected blessing. The woman once feared as a killer now drew visitors seeking healing for ailments that conventional medicine couldn't touch. Dr. Henderson approached her with a proposal that would have seemed impossible months earlier. "This town needs proper medical facilities. Your knowledge combined with my experience could serve people better than either of us working alone. They established their practice in a building donated by grateful families. Alina Burke led the fundraising effort, her social connections now serving redemption instead of destruction. The same voice that had spread poison now promoted healing. Solomon found purpose beyond his wildest dreams. His blacksmith skills proved invaluable in creating specialized medical instruments. Delicate forceps forged with hands that could bend iron. Precise scales crafted by someone who understood the weight of life and death decisions. He designed an examination table that could be adjusted for different patients, created sterilization equipment that prevented infection, built storage systems that kept medicines organized and accessible. Every tool he forged served Miriam's mission to preserve life. Every creation honored the memory of men he couldn't save in that collapsed mine. His gentle strength had found its perfect expression in supporting someone dedicated to healing. The practice grew rapidly as word spread through neighboring settlements. Farmers traveled days to seek treatment for chronic conditions. Families brought children suffering from ailments that had baffled other doctors. Women sought help with pregnancies that carried unusual risks. Miriam's journals expanded with new cases and successful treatments. Each entry represented lives preserved, suffering eased, hope restored where despair had taken hold. Her grandfather's legacy lived on through hands that touched pain with healing power. Alina Burke underwent the most dramatic transformation. The woman who had weaponized gossip now championed truth with equal fervor. She organized ladies' auxiliary groups to support medical outreach. She coordinated supply deliveries to ensure the practice never lacked necessary medicines. Her son Timothy became Miriam's unofficial assistant, fetching supplies and comforting nervous patients. The boy who nearly died now helped others find healing. His recovery served as living testimony to Miriam's abilities. The former sheriff's fate served as cautionary tale about corruption's consequences. Abel Corey faced trial for accepting bribes and falsifying evidence. His co-conspirators in the land speculation scheme received prison sentences that sent clear messages about justice. The territorial authorities issued formal apologies to Miriam. Her record was cleared in every settlement where suspicions had been raised. Official documents now proclaimed her innocence and acknowledged the valuable medical services she provided. Wedding preparations began as autumn painted the mountains in brilliant colors. Miriam and Solomon had found in each other the understanding that comes from shared suffering, transformed into purpose. Two people blamed for deaths they couldn't prevent now devoted their lives to preserving life wherever possible. The ceremony took place in Tribulation Creek's small church, attended by a community that had learned the difference between fear and wisdom. Alina Burke arranged flowers picked from Miriam's healing garden. Dr. Henderson served as Solomon's best man. Timothy Burke carried rings forged by the groom's own hands. Reverend Matthews spoke about redemption and second chances, about communities that grew stronger when they chose understanding over prejudice, about love that flourished despite obstacles that seemed insurmountable. Solomon's wedding vows reflected his journey from isolation to purpose. I promise to be gentle in all things, gentle with your heart, gentle with your dreams, gentle with the precious life we'll build together. His gentleness had never been weakness. It was strength refined by tragedy into something more valuable than raw power. The ability to protect without destroying, to stand firm without becoming harsh, to love without demanding possession. Miriam's vows spoke of partnership forged in understanding. I promise to share my knowledge and my burdens, to build something greater than either of us could create alone, to honor the gift of healing by serving those who need hope. Their marriage united more than two hearts. It joined different kinds of strength into something that could weather any storm. Her intelligence and his steadfastness, her medical knowledge and his practical skills, her determination and his quiet support. The reception celebrated transformation on every level. A community had learned to look beyond surface fears. A woman had reclaimed her reputation through demonstrating her true character. A man had found purpose worthy of his protective instincts. Their first year of marriage established patterns that would define their legacy. Miriam's medical practice flourished with Solomon's support. His workshop produced innovations that improved healthcare throughout the territory. Together, they created something neither could have achieved alone. Children came to their household not through birth but through circumstance. Orphans found family. Abandoned youngsters discovered purpose. Their home became refuge for those society had forgotten or dismissed. Each child learned trades and skills. Each found healing for wounds deeper than physical injury. Each discovered that family could be chosen as well as inherited. Miriam and Solomon's story became legend throughout the territory. The gentle giant and the healing woman who proved that strength and wisdom were more powerful than fear and prejudice. Their legacy lived on in lives saved, families restored, and communities that learned to choose understanding over suspicion. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.